Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and another Christmas card, this one using mostly non-Christmas stamps, specifically the Right MEOW stamp set that Simon Says Stamp released with the Stamptember release. I've literally had this sitting here for, well, the last couple of months with the intention to use it. And then today I decided I had to ink it up. I really wanted to use this one specific image from the set as a little cat with a cute little sweater. So I went through my folder of my Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound cardstock, and I had this large scrap, which was perfect because it fit the cat, so I was able to stamp the cat multiple times using Simon's Intense Black ink. So I was able to get a kind of a row of 4 of them, just making sure they were just far enough apart that I'll be able to die cut them later. And then there was this little piece on the top, and I was like, why not stamp another one, and I'll use that on the inside of the card. So I got them all stamped. And then I colored in each of the cats with a different color combo. And I have the colors I used up on the screen here. Very, very simple basic coloring. Like, super simple. I kept the coloring really light and easy. These are cards I could do multiples of, even with all the coloring, because it didn't take very long. But I did different little kind of colors for each of the cats. But again, kept it simple. Didn't add any like patterns or dots or stripes or anything. Because the focus I want to be on the sweaters. So I went along and colored them all in with these different little color combos, and then I added little dabs of R20 to their ears and their like little cheeks to add a little blush. And then once the basic coloring was done, I die cut them with the coordinating wafer die and lined up. They literally look boring, totally boring. But this is where I get to liven them up. So people were shocked. I posted a sneak peek of this on Instagram and people were like, oh my gosh, you actually cut into your Doodlebug paper. I do on occasion. It's just hard for me to actually cut into it because I do like to hoard and collect all my Doodlebug stuff. But I have a lot of this. This is the Christmas Town 6x6 paper, and it's adorable. And it's also been sitting here just waiting to see if I would actually use it. And so I did. So I stamped the cat image onto various papers in this pack using that same Intense Black ink. The stamping doesn't need to be perfect. I just needed the sweater portion of the stamp. So I made sure to use kind of patterns with a little bit like smaller details and whatnot, since it's a fairly small image and I'm only using the actual like sweater portion. So I would just stamp it in the lower corners of these and then trim it out. So I've still got basically the full sheets of paper to use for other projects, aka petting and putting away and not using. So I used 5 different patterns from the pack. And I decided there's one pattern in here, and I just realized I used upside down. I'm looking at the card right now. Oh, Amy, you're such a moron. Anyway, the red heart pattern paper. I'm looking at the finished card, and I actually adhered it upside down to my card. Anyway, okay, back to this card. I took... I'm just shaking my head at myself. I took each of these images and the like trim around all the sweaters, I wanted to color in with Copic Markers as well, just to kind of give it a little extra something. So each of them I either used, 2 of them I used reds, 1 I used green, and then 2 of them I did some pink just to kind of go with the different pattern papers. Again, very simple coloring, only used 2 Copics for each one. And then once these were colored in, I took my little cutter bee scissors and trimmed out just that little like center portion of the sweater. Very simple, basic cutting here. I just cut right on the line, and I do that with all the little patterned pieces. And then something I've shown in multiple videos when I do paper piecing, I take my little TUXEDO black Memento marker here, and the brush tip of it, I use just the side of the marker and very lightly go along the edges of all these little cuts of pattern paper. It just coats that exposed edge because the exposed edge is a little bit white. My cuts aren't always perfect when I'm trimming things out. So this coats that with the black marker and makes everything look a lot more seamless when I adhere this over my image. So I just go along and lightly add that to all of these little pieces of pattern paper. Everything still looks a little crazy, but now I'm going to adhere them into place, and I'm just using little tiny dabs of Simon's Craft Tacky Glue, trying to keep it as light as possible, like barely squeezing the tube to add the ink or add the adhesive because I don't want it oozing out too much. So just little tiny dabs of that, and then I can adhere the sweaters into place. And of course, the second you adhere it, it's like, oh, okay, you know, it's done. It's cute. I love it. I think they're just adorable with their little pattern sweaters. So I was totally thinking like ugly Christmas sweater with this. So with small images like this, you definitely want like small patterns, because otherwise you just kind of lose all that detail. So I went along and adhered all of my little sweaters to each of the little cats. And then once I have all of those adhered, that's when I stopped, of course, and took a picture and posted it to Instagram to show off my little Christmas cats. So once that one was done, for the sentiments, I am using It's Definitely Sweater Weather, which inspired the card, from the Right Meow stamp set. And I'm using just scraps of Simon's green leaf cardstock. So for the first one, I'm just stamping that sentiment with Simon's clear embossing ink and heat embossing it with Simon's detail white embossing powder. And then I had another scrap that was just wide enough to use a sentiment from the Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. Same thing, anti-static powder tool, stamped the sentiment with the clear embossing ink, and then heat embossed it with that white embossing powder. And then both of these I die cut with Simon's sentiment label dies, and the larger one I cut with the little notch on each end to give it that little flag end. And you can't tell in the video so much. You can see in the pictures at the end, though. Yeah, I used the red pattern paper with the hearts, and it's upside down. This is dry. I don't know if I can pull this. I don't really want to pull this all apart because it's all adhered now. So I guess it'll just have upside down hearts. I totally missed that. So that's what I used for, you know, my card front, and I die cut it with the second largest of Simon's basic rectangle dies. I popped all the cats on with foam tape as well as a sentiment, and then I added some of the Doodlebug Festive Flurry shape sprinkles. I also added some little baby hearts, tiny little heart shape sprinkles. And then on the inside of the card, I stamped another sentiment from the Right Meow stamp set, and I used Simon's lipstick red ink for that. So I stamped that onto the inside of the card, and then I'm going to adhere that last little cat with her little festive sweater. So I adhered that, and then that remaining little sentiment that I had stamped and heat embossed that says, all I want for Christmas is you. I thought that would just, you know, that kind of brings it into Christmas. But again, you could do this with any sort of pattern, any sort of color. And these could totally be, you know, pretty much any theme card if you didn't use like the sweater weather image. But if you did the sweater weather sentiment, you could totally make it, you know, fall themed, winter themed, etc. So stamped that, or added that little sentiment, and then I added a few more of those little baby hearts just to kind of finish it off. And then I had put foam tape across the back of that entire piece. This is why I'm saying I can't really salvage and redo this because it's adhered. It's not going anywhere. But I'm so frustrated that it's upside down. But that finished off my cards. So as always, there will be a link below the video to my blog post and links to all the supplies used. So you can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!